Let's jump in a time machine and head back to a year that feels like a lifetime ago, but also weirdly familiar. 2001. This was a critical moment for online education, a year of massive breakthroughs, but also some really deep uncertainty. We're going to explore it all through the eyes of one of the true pioneers, Morten Flate Paulsen.
And we're going to start not with some flashy tech, but with this, the simple, satisfying feeling of holding a physical book. In January of 2001, Paulsen published his work, basically summing up everything he learned so far. You know, what's so cool about this is that it grounds our story. Before we get into servers and mobile gadgets, we're starting with the very human achievement of putting your ideas down on paper.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll dive into that vision he captured in print. Then, we'll look at the very first baby steps into mobile learning. After that, we'll tackle the huge challenge of scaling up the digital classroom, see a world in transition at a huge conference, and finally, we'll look at a day that changed the world from a very personal perspective.
Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, A Vision in Print. Paulsen's book wasn't just a personal victory lap. It was like a time capsule for the entire field, capturing all the big, tough questions everyone was asking right at the dawn of the new millennium.
So, what was on everyone's mind back then? Well, the book got into everything, from what it's actually like to be an online student to the nitty-gritty of admin and teaching. But look at that last point, globalization. I mean, even then, they were already thinking about how this tech would link up the entire planet through education. That's something we just take for granted today. These were the core problems they were trying to crack. Let's move on to the next section. Because while one chapter was literally closing with a printed book, a totally wild new one was just starting to open. This was the idea of taking learning off the desktop computer, and for the first time ever, putting it right into your pocket.
And this right here, this was the huge mental leap they were making. On one side, you had e-learning, chained to a desk and connected with actual wires. And on the other, this brand new thing they were calling M-learning, running on these clunky but totally revolutionary gadgets you could carry around. The big deal was that shift from stationary to portable.
And what did this amazing tech look like? Well, forget your iPhone. We're talking about these chunky, compact iPad PDAs, the ones with the stylus, and Ericsson phones with these tiny pixelated screens. The whole goal of this big EU-funded project was just to prove that it was even possible to access a course on one of these things. It sounds so basic now, right? But in 2001, this was absolutely bleeding-edge stuff. On to Section 3. Okay, so having cool mobile ideas is one thing, but the real monster problem was scale. How do you go from a neat little experiment for a couple hundred people to a rock-solid system that can handle thousands or even tens of thousands of students?
And this number is exactly why that question was so important. By 2001, Paulsen's institution, NKI, had hit 10,000 online enrollments. Now, it took them 15 years to get there, and it was a massive achievement, but their systems were practically screaming for help. They needed something totally new to handle that kind of growth.
And that something was called SESAM. You can think of it as an early, super-powered version of the learning management systems we use today. But what's really fascinating here, the key innovation, was that SESAM wasn't just a website. It was woven directly into the school's administration and accounting. That deep connection was its secret sauce.
And boy, did they move fast. Just look at this timeline. The pace of change in a single year is incredible. In March, they roll out the big integration. By October, teachers can put grades in online. And by December, you've got better forums, stats, and printing. This was a constant, rapid evolution to make the experience better for everybody.
That spring, the whole international online education world got together in Düsseldorf, Germany. And it turned into this fascinating scene, a place where these radical new ideas about the future were crashing head-on with the old, established way of thinking.
Just look at what was bubbling up at this conference. Wikipedia was this brand new thing that had just launched a few months earlier. People were first hearing about something called SCORM, which helped courses work on different systems, and a new wireless standard called Wi-Fi. And the fact that the conference needed an internet cafe, well, that tells you everything you need to know about getting online back then.
But even with all this new tech buzzing around, this was the question that was on everyone's lips. It sounds almost unbelievable to ask that now, but in 2001, it was a totally serious debate. Is this whole web-based education thing for real, or is it just a passing fad?
And you are not going to believe the answer that came from the UK's Open University, one of the biggest names in the game. Their conclusion was basically,
Yeah, maybe web courses are cheaper than making TV shows, but they're still not as efficient as just using the radio or mailing someone a book. Wow. That just perfectly captures the tension between the pioneers pushing forward and the establishment pumping the brakes.
But, all this progress and debate doesn't happen in a bubble. It was all happening against a much larger backdrop. And in the fall of 2001, the world itself was about to pivot in a way that nobody could have seen coming. This is a story about watching history happen from the sidelines.
The date is September 11th, 2001, and the location isn't a tech conference or a classroom. It's a soccer field in Norway. Morten Paulsen is just being a dad, watching his 8-year-old son's practice. He's making small talk with the other parents about a recent royal wedding. It's a picture of perfect, everyday normalcy. And then, just like that, the normalcy was shattered. One of the parents got a call with the first news of what was happening thousands of miles away in New York. The outside world had just crashed into their ordinary afternoon.
As Paulsen remembers it, they all just rushed home to watch the horrifying images unfold on TV. They saw the towers fall. They learned the timeline of the attacks on the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and the flight that went down in Pennsylvania. It was a single day that would redefine the world for decades.
So when you step back, 2001 really was a year on the brink. You had this incredible technological ambition colliding with old-world skepticism. And all of it was set against this world-changing tragedy that would accelerate so many global trends. Looking back at that moment of intense change leaves us with a really important question for today. In our own world of constant disruption, what's going to be the next 2001 for the way we learn?